32 years of that, my job was to keep everything secret, including the number of cups of tea that I drank every day. And then I was suddenly given this job of, it actually came from the British Prime Minister, Gordon Brown, who basically said to me, saying, there's this stuff called open data. I don't know what it is, or what possible good it could do. We ought to be doing some of it, because I've been talking to Tim Berners-Lee, who invented the World Wide Web, and he thinks it's great. So what can you do in 6 months, and what would be targets? What would be a good target? And could I have a project plan? There's no particular urgency about this. By the end of the day, it will be quite early enough. So I suddenly started for a blank sheet of paper of what should data.gov.uk look like, what data should be open, what targets should we be set, and particularly how we could beat the Americans, who were at the same time under the start of the Obama administration, starting on the same course. So I spent about sort of 3 years doing that. And then I thought I'd retire, but then I found I was spending more time on open data in retirement than I actually was when I was in the civil service office for the World Bank. I'm on the advisory board of the Open Knowledge Foundation, which is the national body on open data. And the working for the British government is a bit like the Hotel California, where you can check out, but you can never leave. So they retained me as an advisor and just basically stopped paying me. So what's open data? The basic proposition of open government data is that governments collect and use a lot of data as part of their operations. Indeed, their operations often generate data. And there are just vast amounts of it, because governments tend to be quite large compared to the rest of the country. And it's data about things that people care about. It's data about medical services, it's data about schools, it's data about crime and justice, it's data about the environment, and it's data about their politicians and their officials. So it's things people care about. And the basic, one of the things about information is the economists call it non-rivalence. You can use it, and then you can use it again. Information doesn't wear out. And one person using it for one purpose doesn't affect it then being used for another purpose. And just because the government has run out of things to do with the data doesn't mean that other people can't do things with that data. They'll have ideas on how that data can be used. Sometimes, as we'll see, things the government hadn't anticipated at all. And they'll have ideas on how the data could be improved, or new services could be built with that data, new things that help people in their everyday lives, or give them a new view on government. So that's the basic proposition. The government has a lot of data, it has used it for whatever purpose it collected it for, and if it makes it available, freely available, and that's free as in the sense of free beer, you don't have to pay for it, but also free in the sense of free speech, that you're not restricted on what you can do with it, then interesting things will happen. And the three main policy objectives of open data we've seen are getting new economic and social value. Data feeds what's being called the applications economy of application builders. Things like tourist applications, information maps, and that sort of thing. It can be used to improve public services and empower citizens to question the people who are providing the public services to them, and it can lead to more transparent government. And I'll show you some examples of that. And just to do some examples in each area of what we've seen, mainly in the UK. New economic and social value. And in Europe, the Vice President of the European Commission has called data the new gold. But sometimes we'd like to see it as the new oil. That it empowers the economy. It's not something you sort of buy and you can bury it in the garden data, government data, provides some of that sort of national information infrastructure that is used throughout the economy and throughout society. So it's things like maps, it's things like weather, it's things like company registers, which is one of the keys to an efficiently working business-to-business environment and availability of credit and business credit and so on. So government data tends to be based agents used in all sorts of places. And in the UK, as we've opened up data, we've seen some unexpected uses coming along. So we published, and I'll give the transparency part of this. We've started to publish every payment that every government department and every municipality made. And this was about transparency. So it's the taxpayers' money, and they ought to be able to see what it's being spent on. And a firm pop up called Spikes who take this information and which comes straight out of the government accounting systems. So as you might imagine, it's pretty chaotic. Every ministry has different coding systems. Everyone spells the name of their suppliers slightly differently. So you can have IBM, all three letters, I dot, B dot, M dot, or I space, B space, M, no. And Spikes clean all that up. They put consistent coding in, and they sell this as business intelligence to suppliers to government. Because it actually has got the information on which ministry is buying what services from who and at what price. And that's led to a more competitive supply to government, good for the economy and the taxpayer. A firm set up and took all the medical prescriptions that had been written by all the doctors in the UK, and that data was available anonymised, depersonalised, so it didn't say who the patient was, and applied the latest medical knowledge on statins, which are the drug against long-term treatment to prevent heart attacks, to the prescribing records. And they found out that doctors were varying greatly in how they prescribe statins. And the saving to the UK National Health Service would be £200 million a year if all the doctors applied the latest medical knowledge. And that was also to be treating the patients better as well. So that's a lot of data analysis to happen. There's operational efficiency and optimization. So any time the roads gets dug up, you're supposed to get a permit from the local council. And a firm called Elgin collect this information and they sell it on to trucking firms and logistics firms so that they can plan their routes, avoiding where congestion will be, not today, we've got census of that, but where the congestion will be next week. Sometimes I think that the utilities use it to find out a road that was dug up last week, so they can dig it up, another utility can dig it up the next week. And the financial products such as the Lloyd's insurance market are starting to use very detailed weather data and very detailed topographical data to get more accurate flood insurance, particularly against 1 in 50, 1 in 100 year type events, where if you've recently been flooded, your premium goes through the roof. But you're unlikely actually to be flooded next year. The person who's going to be flooded next year is paying a lower premium, and probably his or her neighbours slightly further up the valley are paying the same premium because they're in the same area, and they don't have a flood risk. So better insurance products. And a lot of business innovation starting to happen. The mapping area has really taken off as we've made the maps free for anyone to use. And government turned out to be a data user too. So I don't know how it is in Antigua,
But in the UK, it was very difficult for one government department to get data from another government department. You know, it was easier for foreign spies to get the data from a department than another department from the same government. So Greater Manchester started their open data initiative to make it easier to share data between municipalities and between the municipality and the health service and the fire service and the police. And they've delivered very significant savings from that. So open data is being used to improve public services, better information services to the public. Believe it or not, governments don't make the best websites always, and they can't cater for all tastes in websites. So people are taking government data and presenting it to the public in new formats, in new ways. For the New York metro system, the subway, there are 68 different smartphone applications. You can get the same information, you know, wanted in a different colour or displayed in a different way. You know, select the one you like, not the one the government tells you to have. On the right-hand side here, there's something called the Asbarometer, where someone took the government data of street crime, and if you go into a high crime neighbourhood in London, your smartphone will start beeping, which basically says you want to hide it away. This was the top application on the Apple App Store in the UK for 6 weeks running. And the guy who did it is actually a professional smartphone application developer, and it's his, you know how in chefs have signature dishes, you know, to show off. This was his signature application, and you know, how great on the CV to show that he had this application that was top download 6 weeks running. But also, more seriously, the performance of individual schools. A lot of data is gathered up by the education system, and making that available to parents so they can see how, you know, which schools in their area were best for their children, which had the best performance, and really question the teacher about why isn't your performance better at this school? Why is this other school doing better? Can't you do better? And part of the political purpose here is that if every local school improves, then the national average improves, and that's one of the policy drivers. Performance of individual hospitals. These are the 3 columns here are three hospitals nearest to my elderly mother's house, and this is the page which shows their cleanliness. And things ringed in green are above average, and things ringed in red are below average and are worrying. I think it's Derriford Hospital there has more hospital-acquired infections, more antibiotic-resistant infections. And again, you know, question on the hospital: why aren't you doing better? In the UK, a few years ago, we started publishing the clinical outcomes from heart surgery from 240 heart surgeons in the UK. As a result of doing that, the number of deaths during or after heart surgery have decreased by 1,000 a year. Wow. And you know, it just what it did was create a stimulus for the best practice to spread. And we thought actually, when it was originally done, it was thought, well, this will stop surgeons in the most advanced hospitals doing risky surgery, you know, because their scores will be bad. But actually people understood that, and it was this sort of peer pressure and the surgeon's reputation that got to improving surgery across the land. And open data provides a hub for civic engagement. So we've seen local newspapers take this data about local performance and used it as a feature in the newspaper, and community websites use data to attract people in and really start to generate some community action. We started to publish, in the model of the Chicago crime maps, a map of individual crimes month by month. In the UK, we have 25 million visitors to this website every year, which is the equivalent of half the population. And it's, you can see it for a very, very local area. And there's all sorts of links there to get people involved. Because actually on another page on about this area, about Sevenoaks, you'll see a picture of your local policeman, your neighbourhood policeman, and how you can get involved in setting local policing priorities. As a result of this, the police started to complain a bit that they're having to divert resources into crimes that the neighbourhood will arrest, which I think is part of the political purpose. So it's changing this. We've had citizens improving official data. So we had data on 300,000 bus stops in the UK, which we released, and OpenStreetMap, which is a fantastic organisation who do this sort of Wikipedia of maps, had a project to validate all these, and they found 18,000 of these bus stops were incorrectly coded. Some were in the middle of lakes, some were marked on the wrong side of the road. So they picked up the wrong route on the route plan, so people were standing in the wrong place waiting for a bus. Anyway, civil society corrected that, and have that data being taken back into government. And we've had citizen source data. This is a snow front, not I think a usual problem in Antigua, but this is all by people posting on Twitter where they are and how hard it's snowing, and the hashtag UK Snow. And I actually have animation of a snow front moving across. And finally, more transparent government. Classically, where does my money go? How does the government break down how much is going to each service? How much each of the senior civil servants are paid? Someone once said to me that, Andrew, this open data stuff, your mum won't be interested in it. Believe me, when my mum saw the list of 172 civil servants paid more than the PM, and I wasn't on it, my mother was extremely interested in it. Organisational transparency, which, who does what within government, what are their responsibilities. This application was thought up by a 16-year-old schoolgirl called Isabel Long, who found data on the power consumption, electricity consumption of government departments in real time. It's posted every 30 minutes. And she thought, do these ministries turn off their lights in their computers when they go home at night? And this is the line of electricity consumption through the day on three major departments, and it's per square foot of office space. Thankfully, the Department of Energy Conservation have the lowest energy there. The Ministry of Defence have the highest through the night, and they're sort of 24 hours a day. The Ministry of Finance have a lot of power used at night. Now, why is that? Why don't they ever go home? And we've had the emergence of data-driven journalism, and data journalism, journalists using data in a bit like normal journalism, but a bit different too. Normal journalism is often about finding out a story that someone else knows and doesn't want anyone else to know. The data journalists are finding stories that nobody knew, and they ought to have known. So the data journalists found the story in the 24 million lines of British government expenditure information that not even the Ministry of Finance knew. And it led the Ministry of Finance to say, hey, we wish we'd known that, and we're going to change our policy. So they're finding things that nobody knew. So lessons learned along the way. Focus on things people care about. Any government can put out boring data. There's got to be data things to care about. Release the data people want. So, and one of the things we'll ask in the discussion is, what data would you like the government of Antigua to be releasing? Make it quick and easy to do, and how you build these applications. This is the pothole reporting system in the UK, Fix My Street. You can report it in less than 90 seconds while you're still upset about it. Using data to encourage support and community action. Deliver incrementally. In the UK, we started with only just over 1,000 data sets, and we're now up to 9,385 after 3 years, and I left about here. So, as you can see, since I went, they've continued to churn out more data sets, and particularly in response to what people ask for. Don't expect perfect data. So we looked at the National Health Service records, which had 20,000 pregnant men in the UK. Miracle for medical science. Continuously engage with the developers. That data's no good unless it's used. So you've got to continuously engage with people with the technical skills to use the data, but also the vision to think of innovative applications and way of using that. And they're not necessarily the same thing. And make open mean open, and that means an open license. So the government can't turn around and say, no, you can't use that data in that way. The government need to commit it essentially to the public domain. Data that's reusable, so if it's in printed form or it's in a PDF document, it's very difficult to reuse. So it's got to be a spreadsheet in a data file. No cost. A number of ministries, certainly in the UK, thought, oh, we've got all this data, we could charge for it. But actually that kills the goose that lays the golden eggs on data. And you've got to recognise success. And I hope some of the examples in my gallery are about the success. So this started about 4 years ago with Tim Berners-Lee giving a talk about the next web and getting a whole audience chanting, "Government, give me the raw data now." The US federal government did something in the first Obama tour. The UK government, Australia, France, Singapore, Kenya, 2,500 data sets. Certainly the first in Africa and still the leader in Africa, although Ghana and Tanzania to some extent have done something in this. Moldova, ex-Soviet republic, now independent, have seen open data as part of their transition to democracy and normal constitutional affairs. The World Bank itself had a treasure trove of data which was only used by its analysts. They just put it all on the web and made it findable. And in case you think this is all for sort of large countries and how it's not Antigua, quite small cities having open data initiatives. Rennes in France, Ghent in Belgium, Vienna, leaders in open data. So only over 260 governmental data sites, open data government sites in the world. And if we now zoom in on this area, there's nothing, certainly in the middle of last year, nothing had happened at all in the Caribbean. So Antigua has volunteered to be the first and the pilot with the World Bank on this, and they Caribbean Open Institute, and that's why we're here, to help show what we can do for Antigua and help Antigua lead the way in the Caribbean. And so that's the end of my talk, and I'll hand over to Dr. Maurice McNaught.